were a couple big fights over this weekend. I'm going to start out with the Jaron Ennis rematch with Karen Chukhadzhian. I think I got that right. Karen Chukhadzhian. Yeah, Ukrainian contender. He had a fight against Boots Ennis last year, which he lost clearly. Boots Ennis beat him, but it was a frustrating fight for Boots because he couldn't catch him. It was like Chukhadzhian didn't want to engage. He picked when he wanted to engage with Boots, but he really didn't allow Ennis to stalk him down and corner him. And it was a boring fight that Ennis won by a clean sweep, more or less. So they had the rematch yesterday. Well, not yesterday, on Saturday. The fights with Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence, they fell through. One was because they have other contractual obligations, and then two, they're moving up to 154. They can't make 147 anymore. And as I get into talking about this fight, I think you're going to figure out that Jaron probably is going to be thinking about moving up to 154, not just for them, but I think he's probably having a little bit of trouble making weight as well now. But, this fight was completely different. Chukhadzhian, he came out from rip trying to not stand toe to toe with him, so to speak, but he was staying in the danger zone much more often than the first fight, and he was much more willing to engage with Boots. And Boots clearly won this fight. Let's make no mistake about that. But Chukhadzhian gave him that work, and there were points in that fight where he was landing clean shots, and then later in the fight, I think it might have been let's say between rounds 8 and 11, Chukhadzhian won, I think, two of those rounds, and he had some points where he was lighting Boots up in these little small pockets of time. And some will say, oh, maybe Boots is trying to show a little bit of vulnerability, so maybe guys like Crawford will be more apt to want to fight him, thinking that there's a weakness there, or those might just be holes in his game. One of the last fights I covered was between Beterbiev and Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. And one of the keys to victory I mentioned for Dmitry Bivol was the pendulum step. Both Beterbiev and Bivol used the pendulum step, but in different ways and at different frequencies and at different times in their fights. Sometimes like context and situation dependent. But that pendulum step, and I showed it in my video. I got up and I was showing the in and out movement of the pendulum step. It's so difficult from the outside looking in. And when you're watching on TV, it looks really crafty. But a lot of people will say, well, he's moving in and out of range. Why can't you time that? It's so difficult when the hands are moving as well as the body, because you never know when it's going to go from this to boom. You never know it's going to be like this, and then he backs up. It's so difficult to deal with unless you've been in the gym and trained and or sparred or fought against guys like that. It can really throw you off. So I don't know if Boots is rusty or really lacking in that area so much as it's an awkward fighter and an awkward style. Now, he needs to clean up some of the rough edges. I'm not going to deny that, but I think that Chukhadzhian does not get enough credit for how good of a fighter he is. And in my opinion, he can beat a lot of the guys at 147 right now outside of Boots Ennis. So he had a very, very tough fighter in front of him who did not back down. And he took some shots this fight, and he was like, yo, I'm here. Let's rock. Boom. Gave it right back to Boots. So I think it was a very good fight for both of them. We learned a lot about both fighters. I would like to see Boots Ennis move up to 154. And he talked about his performance post-fight. And I'm going to get to Toom's comment in a second, but let me go ahead and let you guys see what Boots Ennis said about his performance. He said, I was prepared for anything Chukhadzhian was coming with. I wanted to get that knockout. I heard him a couple of times, but I was rushing. And so on and so forth. He said, I think my performance was okay, but might be time to move up to 154. And that's a quote from Boots Ennis. He said, I felt good, but my pop will be better at 154, and I'll be where I should be. I'm getting older now. I'll be 28 next year. and he's probably draining down to get to 147. He's not killing himself, but he's starting to feel it a little bit, and it's probably best to move up now before it becomes a little too dangerous for him to keep draining down the fight at 147. And coincidentally, conveniently, that's where Spence and Crawford are at. Spence getting ready to fight Sebastian Fundora. I'll be covering that fight pretty soon. And then Crawford, just got the win over Madrimov, another Eastern Bloc fighter. And now we're looking to see what he's going to do next. Could that be a fight against Boots? We don't know. So these are the things to think about and the questions to ask. So let me know what you guys think about the fight. What do you think about the win? And what do you think is next for Boots? And for those interested, like me, what do you think is next for Karen Chukhadzhian? Because I think he can make some real noise at 147. Just like I think Madrimov, even though he lost to Crawford, can make real noise at 154. Let me go ahead and look over at the comments quickly. Toon with another one says, has boxing become more of a global sport now? It seems that American fighters dominate less every year at every weight class. Great question, and go check out my post-fight review of the Beterbiev and Bivol fight, and or look at the prediction. I don't remember which video it was, but I was talking about how the Eastern Bloc fighters are running boxing right now. I said it's not the British, it's not the Americans, it's not even the Latinos to a certain extent. It's the Eastern Bloc fighters. You look at the top 10 pound for pound ranking list, or even look at the top 6 for ESPN. I don't know if it changed yet, but last time I looked, you had Usyk at number. You had Usyk, you have Bivol, and you have Beterbiev. So you have 3 guys in that top 6 right there. Eastern Bloc fighters. 2 Russians and 1 Ukrainian, I believe. And you see, like, when you look at their resume and how they're beating guys, they're either beating guys in dominant fashion, or they're slowly over time breaking down guys that are just straight stars. Like, come on, Usyk versus Tyson Fury. He broke him down over the course of that fight and was able to win. Almost stopped him. So, and then you look at Bivol and Beterbiev. That was one of that might be fight of the year in terms of like competitiveness. Like, it was a chess match. Neither guy was running from the other, and they were landing some very, very good shots, and it was high level boxing. Like, we don't get that out of American boxing. A lot of times you see guys that got power, but they're flat footed. That's why guys like Bud Crawford and Boots Ennis and Tankdavis, they stand out so much because they're more of the total package. They're able to do a lot of things very, very well to great, versus a lot of American fighters, British fighters, they're good in 1 or 2 areas and they're lacking severely in others. Yeah, so that's a great question. And then I'm reading more of the comments. Again, another good question here. How much do you think it affects a boxer's overall performance having to fight outside of their natural weight class? Often for better marquee bouts, I would assume, but I may be wrong. I don't know if those 2 comments are related to each other, but that's another great point. And my personal opinion is that you should fight at your natural weight. And I don't really have much sympathy for what we term weight bullies in the combat sports world, whether it be MMA or boxing. You have somebody who walks around at 180, but then they're fighting at 154. Why? I guess there's 2 ways to look at this. If you can make the weight and still perform, I guess kudos to you. But me personally, it wouldn't mean as much to me. I'm fighting somebody who's naturally 145. Let's say I'm fighting somebody naturally who's a natural 140 pounder when I'm a natural 154 pounder. And I'm able to weight drain and still be like 80 to 90% of my usual self. How's that really fair? Why feel great about that? But that's just me. Okay? And then you have to consider the health issues. You can dehydrate to get down to a certain weight, and then rehydrate. And you can do that. You can get the water back into your muscles, but it's hard to replace the uh, water in your brain because different fluids like synovial fluids in the joints and cerebral spinal fluid, they are even blood serum. They're the majority of the composition of those different things are water. So it's easy to replace water in the muscles, but you can't replace it that quickly within a 24-hour period that they give you between the weigh-ins and the fight to really have the same punch resistance. So you can get away with these things when you're younger, but as you get older, not only does your punch resistance go down naturally, but it also gets harder to dehydrate and rehydrate without getting the ill effects that come with that. So a lot of times you'll see guys get dehydration, rehydration hangovers. And there's a few examples of fighters becoming very ill or even getting close to fainting on the scales because they're so close to the danger zone with how much water weight they've cut. You see this with wrestlers a lot. I mean, they'll get to the point where they're like spitting into a water bottle just to get rid of every ounce of water they have in their body to make weight. And at that point, it's like, just fight at the next weight class. Like, stop trying to weight drain. So when you get your ass knocked out, I don't feel bad for you. And a prime example of this in recent times is Devin Haney. Devin Haney has been weight draining for years to fight at 130 and 135, even 140. He should really be fighting at 147, but maybe he knows he doesn't have a lot of power and he can't really fight against those guys and bring that power up to 147, even though he's as big as those guys. For one reason or another, he's just not as physically strong. Like, punching power can be acquired over time, but like natural punching power, some may agree with this, some may not, but a common trope is you're born with it. You either have it or you don't. Even with like football, with throwing, you either have a strong arm or you don't. Yeah, you can enhance what you have, but guys that are naturally born with that, it's hard to duplicate that just through hard work. You got to have a little extra along with the hard work, right? So, for example, like, I was always a hard thrower in baseball. Like, I used to be a pitcher in Little League. And when I was 11 years old, about to turn 12, I remember going down to Ocean City to like the golf course where they had the pitch thing where you can throw it and they had the radar gun. I threw 81 at 11 years old, but you can't teach that. Like, most kids my age weren't throwing that hard. There were like a few kids from Camden and maybe another kid from Chislehurst that were throwing somewhat hard, but like, you are born with that, and then the work ethic just enhances that. So same thing with punching power. Like, you can enhance that, but you kind of got to know your limits. So I think with a Devin Haney, like, yeah, he can go to 140 as long as he can make the weight and he could beat up on those guys. But it's just because they don't have the power to make him pay for his lack of power. Right? But as soon as you face somebody your size that also has pop, and then unfortunately Ryan Garcia fought him twice already, so they know each other very well. You're not going to fool him, and he knows that he can hurt you because he done it before, and he knows, shoot, I'm stronger now than when we were kids, and you're not really much stronger. You can't hide that. There's only so much you can try to use to compensate for that deficiency. So, look, that was a great question, and that's why I bring up Jarrett Swift Hurd a lot too. He was a champion at 154, and I mentioned him in either the prediction video or the post fight video for the B-Ball Better BF fight, in that he was knocking guys out at 154 because he was bigger than them. But I remember watching his fights, and he would take so many clean shots. I'm like, dude, like, you're just walking through these guys after 6 rounds because you're able to take the shots and they just tire out. But eventually, you're going to run into somebody who is able to take the shots you're throwing and they hit hard too, and you're going to crash out. And his last fight that I watched, he's not old, but it didn't go well for him. And you could see the effects of all the punishment that he took in the ring over the years, and it showed. So, yeah, stay in your lane, stay in your weight class. If not, you can't get mad when people gloat at your misfortune when another person your size or bigger comes through and does the same thing to you that you were doing to others. So, let me know what you think about the Ennis fight. Let me know what you think about the weight draining issue that Toom asked about and I elaborated on. And then I'm going to talk about the fight that Keyshawn Davis had as well as Abdullahmason, because those are two up and coming prospects, and they had highlight nights this weekend. So first off, Keyshawn Davis, he's been trying to get at everybody at 130 and 135 for a hot little minute now. Like at least the past 1 to 3 years, he's been calling out guys up there, including Tankdavis, and he called him out after this fight. But going into this fight, I'm gonna look up his opponent here. He was fighting Gustavo Lemos. So he was fighting him, and mind you, Lemos came into the fight 6 pounds overweight on the scales at the weigh-in, and a lot of people thought they were going to call off the fight, but Keyshawn was like, "Nah, let's do it anyway." And he came in there, he beat the brakes off this dude. I think in 2 rounds, he got the one knockdown, um, made him tip over, and then the second knockdown, he fell into the ropes. I might be getting the knockdowns mixed up, but it don't freaking matter. The point is that the weight didn't matter. He was on this dude's head from the opening bell and got him up out of there quick, man. And he made a statement. And after the fight, the first person he called out was Tank Davis. He said, "Yo, just send me the contract." Now, whether you think he's serious or whether you think he's just posturing or just trying to drum up a bunch of noise, that's neither here nor there. The point is, he looked very impressive in that win, and the weight didn't matter. He's 5'9", and I'm looking at his reach, and I have a similar build, so that's why I look at these guys and I understand, or at least in my estimation, it makes sense why some of these guys are doing what they're doing. He's 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. I mean, and Lemos was 5'5.5". They don't even show his reach here, but just looking at the fight, I'm like, you don't have the reach advantage that Keyshawn Davis has, and he got speed. He's super quick. He's stupid quick with them hands. And man, listen, it was over before we even blinked. And mind you, Lemos was undefeated. He was 29-0 coming into that fight, going against Keyshawn, who was 11-0, and it didn't take very long. So let me know what you guys think. Who would win a fight between Keyshawn Davis and Tank Davis? I mean, the battle of the Davises. Who do you think is going to win? Because Keyshawn, young fighter, maybe he might need 1 or 2 more fights, but maybe he doesn't. Because I can say this much: I don't think that Tank Davis is going to be stupid if they fight and rush in there and take punches to give punches, because he can't do that against Keyshawn. Keyshawn going to knock him out if that happens. But Tank Davis, how does he approach him? Is he patient? Does he try to set traps for Keyshawn Davis and use his inexperience against him? Because I think Keyshawn Davis, isn't he like an Olympic gold medalist? I think he was an Olympian. Let me look this up real quick. Keyshawn Davis, Olympics. Because he got a pedigree. He got a pedigree. Yeah, so as an amateur, he won a silver medal in the 2019 Pan American Games and the 2019 World Championships and 2020 Summer Olympics. So he has the amateur pedigree. He's very, very sharp and very, very confident in what he does. So being a really good amateur, you tend to see a lot of different styles, and you tend to get a sense of what other people are doing even outside of what you see in professional boxing. So that's why a lot of these guys that are good in the amateurs and they're able to deal out punishment, they tend to be they have a chance to be very, very good pros. Lomachenko, Dmitry Bivol, Beterbiev, Andre Ward. I think he was Andre Ward a gold medalist? Think so. Alexander Usyk, very, very long amateur pedigree and very, very successful. So I think Keyshawn Davis, he's a threat. Let me know what you guys think. And then last but not least, we have Abdullahmason. Exciting fight. and he was tested. That's the key. He got tested and he passed. All right. So he had a fight this weekend versus Johan Vasquez, and in the first round he got dropped not once but twice with a left hook. So people are going to be looking at that film and be studying that left hook that Vasquez was able to land. And in at least one of those exchanges, he landed the left hook while Mason was trying to land a left hook of his own. So he learned he threw his hook while Vasquez was throwing his hook, and he lost. Now he was able to bounce back, drop Vasquez, and then in the second round finish him off with a body shot and stop him. But it showed it showed maybe a weakness possibly, but it also showed perseverance. He didn't look phased at all, and he got hit pretty clean both times, but he didn't look phased at all. He came back aggressive but smart and immediately just put out the fire. So just very, very impressive. Abdullah Mason 16-0 now with the win, 14 knockouts. So does he have 2024 prospect of the year title? We'll find out. But your boy's been active. I've been very impressed with all his fights this year, and just him as a whole, what he's been able to do this early in his career. So I thought that he's going to have to clean that up a little bit. But even when he got hit with the first left hook, he had his hand up. He was just able to get around the guard. So it was impressive by Vasquez, and I don't think anything alarming that Mason needs to clean up. He just needs to tighten it up a little bit, but nothing alarming. It's not like when I used to watch Errol Spence early in his career, and I remember I used to talk to my buddy all the time, and you know who you are. We used to talk about this all the time. I'm like, yo, Spence, he a monster, bro. I'm like, he need to clean up that defense because eventually he's going to catch up with them. Look, I wasn't foreshadowing anything, so to speak, but it's just common sense. As a fighter, you see these things. It's like, if you don't clean it up, it doesn't matter what your reputation is, whether people think you're the boogeyman or not. All it takes is one shot, and all that stuff goes out the window. You're just a regular guy again. So you have to make sure you clean up these things early on against the lesser competition so that it doesn't come back to haunt you against upper level competition. So make of that what you will. Let me know what you think. What do you think is next for Abdullah Mason? What did you think about his performance against Johan Vasquez? What did you think about Johan Vasquez being able to be the first person to sit him on his rear and at least make him look human for half a second? Let me know. But that's it for this episode. Like I said, I'll probably be back on Wednesday or earlier on Thursday to give my pregame prediction, because this is a big game coming up between the Eagles and the Commanders on a short week, but we need to get this dub, okay? So that's it. Enjoy your nights, and I'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.